Hi, everyone, I'm Dan Abrams, and this is Court Cam.
You ready to take your plea?
Yeah! I'm killing all you. I hope you die in prison as well.
First up, we go to Detroit, Michigan, for the trial of Theodore Wafer. He's been charged with second-degree murder, manslaughter, and possessing a firearm while committing a felony. 9 months earlier, the 52-year-old was awoken around 4 a.m. by someone banging on his front door. It was 19-year-old Renisha McBride. She'd gotten into a car accident 6 blocks away, was intoxicated, and apparently looking for help. When Wafer heard the noise, he believed someone was trying to break into his home. He went to the door with a shotgun, then fired at Renisha, hitting her in the face. She died on the porch.
218 emergency.
Yes. I just shot somebody on my front porch with a shotgun, banging on my door.
Prosecutors argued that Wafer acted lawlessly, failing to call the police and then shooting an unarmed woman without warning. Wafer claimed it was self-defense and pled not guilty. The trial lasted several days, culminating with the testimony of Wafer, who described what happened that night.
Has the person or persons outside your house said any words?
Oh, nobody's saying anything.
At this moment, what is going through your head?
This is trouble. This is not good.
And then what happens to you?
So I opened the door all the way as much as I could. And as soon as I did that, this person came out from the side of my house so fast. That's when I raised the gun and shot.
And when you shot that shotgun, Ted, were you afraid for your life?
Yes.
The jury deliberated for 8 hours before returning with a verdict.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I understand that you've reached a verdict.
If Wafer is found guilty, he could be sentenced to life in prison.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Theodore Wafer, as follows. Count 1, murder in the second degree. Guilty of murder in the second degree.
At sentencing 2 weeks later, Wafer was offered a chance to speak to the family of Renisha.
To the parents, family, and friends of Renisha McBride, I apologize from the bottom of my heart. And I am truly sorry for your loss.
When he was finished, Judge Dana Hathaway emotionally addresses Wafer and explains her sentencing decision.
This is one of the saddest cases I have ever had. A young woman's life is gone, and otherwise a law-abiding citizen's life is ruined. I do not believe that you are a cold-blooded murderer, or that you are some sort of monster. I would call it the worst mistake of your life, but I don't know that you can ever use the word mistake to describe a murder. And a person was murdered. I cannot go below the guidelines.
And with that, the judge sentenced Wafer to 15 to 30 years in prison, plus 2 years for the firearm charge. His attorneys have appealed, arguing that the minimum potential sentence should have been lower. The state disagrees, and the case is currently being argued before Michigan's Supreme Court. Next, we're at the Cook County Criminal Courthouse in Chicago, Illinois. Antoine Jones is awaiting a bond hearing for a murder charge. Jones, a known gang member, spotted members from a rival gang allegedly selling drugs on his turf and opened fire. 11-year-old Takia Holmes was sitting in the backseat of a van nearby when the shots rang out. She was struck in the head and died in the hospital. At the courthouse, Jones is in a holding area, waiting for his hearing to begin. As he waits, he dozes off in his chair. Letting his guard down proves to be a mistake, and Jones is in for a rude awakening. A fellow inmate, also in custody, approaches Jones and begins punching him repeatedly. The man responsible for the unprovoked attack is Renard Williams, in custody for his own murder charge. Williams had just left a hearing right before the brutal assault. Deputies rush in and try to subdue Williams as he continues to land punches on Jones. Williams is taken away, and a now awake Jones declines to press charges, and none are filed. Cook County jail staff said it was unclear why Williams attacked Jones, and they were unsure if the two knew each other prior to the incident. Jones has since been denied bail on the murder charge and is currently in custody in Cook County awaiting trial.
You are in contempt, Mr. Tertelgate?
No, I'm not.
Be quiet right now. I will have you arrested.
Stormy.
We're in Eureka, Montana, and the man wearing the no hunting or trespassing sign around his neck is Ernie Tertelgate, Montana's proverbial sovereign citizen, better known as the natural living man. The 57-year-old's in court today representing himself on charges of driving with a suspended license and obstructing a peace officer during his arrest. But now, after Tertelgate interrupted proceedings during jury selection, Judge Stormy Langston holds him in contempt of court.
You are in contempt, Mr. Tertelgate?
No, I'm not.
Be quiet right now. I will have you arrested.
Stormy. You're in contempt of law. I'm standing for my
Officer
country's
Hines,
constitution, my
take Mr.
country's people.
Tertelgate into custody, please.
And I'm not keeping hands off me, Clint.
As security attempts to remove Tertelgate, Town Attorney Clifton Hayden keeps one of his supporters at bay.
Do we understand? Keep your hands off of me. Keep your hands off of me. Keep your hands off of me. Clinton Hines, you are guilty of conducting a military crime of foreign war. I'm an officer of justice.
Just as it looks like Tertelgate is being escorted out, he isn't.
What are we doing? Back off.
Tertelgate is almost out of the courtroom when he grabs the doorway and pushes back against the officer.
What are we doing? Back off.
Leave me alone, Clinton.
As the somewhat awkward wrestling match continues, Tertelgate's supporters add commentary.
This man
Leave me alone.
deserved this. Leave me alone. Unconstitutional.
He hasn't done any wrong.
So I'm gonna get hurt. Why has no one been able to tell him what wrongs he's done?
Doing me harm.
Why has no one been able to tell him what wrongs he's done?
Back off! Are you getting in it?
I'm backing off and respect me now.
From the floor, Tertelgate continues the sovereign citizen argument that the court doesn't hold jurisdiction over him.
When I comply, it will not be because contract is established.
When Tertelgate finally gets handcuffed, one of his supporters addresses Judge Langston.
Your Honor, can I ask a question without getting contempt for?
What is your question, sir?
My question is what did Ernie do wrong? What did he do wrong?
He's not following the procedure and was...
The court has no jurisdiction.
What are the procedures to follow? The Constitution.
The court has no jurisdiction. This court has never answered for one thing. Okay.
At the very least, the common rules of being civil in a civil society.
Can we hold that officer as
Remove my materials. All these people here.
No, you don't.
Listen, all these people remove my materials. Get my hat, my constitution.
Following the incident, Ernie Tertelgate was found guilty of contempt of court, but served no jail time. He was also charged with assaulting a peace officer. That case is still pending. As for his original charge of driving with a suspended license, he was also found guilty, but again served no jail time. The charge of obstructing a peace officer was dismissed. Next, we're in Fort Lauderdale, Florida for a bond hearing. 29-year-old John Reese reportedly violated conditions of his bond, including a no-contact order stemming from a previous domestic violence battery charge. The victim in that case is Reese's former girlfriend and mother of his child. After taking testimony, Judge Ian Richards revokes Reese's bond. But as a deputy starts to cuff him, he breaks away and charges at his ex. Then, without hesitation, Judge Richards vaults over the bench directly into the chaos. As the deputy approaches Reese from behind with cuffs, he jerks away and makes a run at his ex-girlfriend. Near the witness stand, he delivers a couple of closed-fist punches as a deputy and an attorney try to pull him away. But help's on the way. From a real-life Caped Crusader, that's Judge Richards, who springs into action from above, helping wrestle the defendant to the floor. Victims quickly rushed out of the courtroom. And moments later, backup arrives in the form of 4 police officers who just happened to be in the hallway waiting to testify in another case. After being handcuffed, Reese's brought to his feet and escorted out of the courtroom. As a result of the attack, the victim sustained some bruising on her arms and legs, but did not need to be taken to the hospital. For Judge Richards, it appears to be all in a day's work. He returns to his seat and gets back to business. For the courtroom attack, John Reese was charged with battery and resisting or obstructing arrest. He would later plead no contest and was sentenced to 364 days in county jail. For his original charge of violating a no-contact order, he received an additional 478 days with credit for time served.
You can't even say you're sorry because you never will be. You are a sick man.
Next, we head to Cleveland, Ohio for a sentencing hearing. 67-year-old Timothy Shaleen was found guilty of murder and aggravated arson. 12 years earlier, he was living next door to Gwendolyn Bewley, who was found dead in her home, which had been set on fire. Shaleen was an early suspect, since investigators would later find out he was stealing money from her. He was convicted of theft and served over 3 years in prison. But because Shaleen claimed he was out of town the day Bewley died, he wasn't charged with murder. 7 years later, police used new advanced cell phone technology to disprove Shaleen's alibi and charge him with Gwendolyn's murder. After a trial lasting 12 days, Shaleen was found guilty. Today, he's about to learn his sentence. But first, Bewley's daughter Sue, who's only a few feet away from Shaleen, has a few words for the man who killed her mother.
She deserves so much better in life, and I'm left with the memory of how she died such a brutal, horrible death. I can't possibly comprehend a person with no soul and no remorse. I can't have my mom back. And you're still here. You have your family.
As Shaleen sits quietly, she puts down her prepared statement and speaks from the heart about a personal item once belonged to her mother.
I took my mother to France. This is her charred scarf. It's about the only piece of clothing I have left from her. I have pictures, thank God, I copied when I was little, that I have some kind of family pictures, because not much survived in her house.
And finally, she finishes her statement with a blistering message for the defendant.
And what you did to my mother is horrible! How dare you! You have no remorse. You sit there and you smirk and wink at your family. I don't know who could support you. You can't even say you're sorry because you never will be. You are a sick man, and you should have been put away a long time ago.
Shaleen's ultimately sentenced to life in prison and must serve a minimum of 20 years before he's eligible for parole. Next, we take you to Houston, Texas for the verdict in the trial of Huntley Gritcher. 29-year-old's charged with murder in the stabbing death of 25-year-old Shannon Gallagher. The two men had an altercation at a local bar. They both later arrived at an apartment building complex where Gritcher lived. Using a kitchen knife, Gritcher stabbed Gallagher in what he says was an act of self-defense. But police charged him with murder, and the case went to trial. Over 3 weeks, witnesses from both sides testified about what happened that night. Gritcher claimed he believed Gallagher was armed and was only trying to protect himself. But according to the prosecution, Gallagher was unarmed and raised his hands before being stabbed, indicating he didn't want to fight. After hearing all the testimony, the jury retires. A packed courtroom waits anxiously for the verdict. If found guilty, Gritcher could spend the rest of his life in a Texas prison. After 9 hours, the jury returns with its verdict.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Huntley Gritcher, not guilty.
As Gritcher hugs his attorney, his friends and family celebrate with tears of joy. Meanwhile, the family of Shannon Gallagher remain quiet but stunned as their long road ends with a not guilty verdict.
I told the truth, nothing but the truth, and I just am so grateful for the jurors.
Next, we go to bond court in Miami, Florida. The defendant is 23-year-old Deontay Blackman. He's facing a number of charges, including attempted sexual battery, armed burglary, and assault with a deadly weapon. Blackman allegedly followed a woman into the elevator of her upscale condominium. As seen on this surveillance video, he appears to be on the phone while the woman stands just a few feet away. Blackman then followed the woman to her apartment and allegedly forced his way inside. He then allegedly struck the woman with a metal pipe before demanding oral sex. She resisted, and after several minutes, escaped to the bedroom and screamed for help from the balcony. Blackman took off and left the building using the same entrance from which he arrived. He was arrested 2 days later and now appears before Judge Alberto Millian, hoping to be released on bond.
Mr. Blackman, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. I'm ready to get this over with. Tell my side of the story.
Yeah, that may not be possible. You're being charged with threats of attempted sexual battery. It's punishable by up to 15 years in prison. Armed burglary with an assault or battery. That's punishable by life in prison.
The judge gives the public defender who's representing Blackman a chance to speak.
Sir, I'm gonna advise you not to talk about the facts of your case today.
Mr. Rector, do you have any argument?
As far as the on the four corners of the A1.
Mr. Blackman, please don't talk while your attorney's speaking.
When the public defender's finished speaking, the judge goes over the defendant's bond.
As to count number one, I'm going to set the bond at $7,500. As to count two, it's going to be no bond. As to count four, it's going to be $5,000. And as to count five, they'll be held without a bond. All right, good luck to you, and somebody from the public defender's office will be in touch with you in the future.
Okay, so I don't have a bond.
In 2 counts, I think 3 counts, you don't have a bond, and I'm also signing a stay away order from the alleged victim. You're to have no contact with that person, direct or indirect. Understood?
Understood.
But Blackman refuses to go quietly.
My thing is, I don't have a chance to explain my side of the story, what really happened, because
I advise you that right now is not the time for that.
Sir, I think your attorney's trying to tell you not to speak about the facts of the case. Everything you're saying here is being recorded and can be used against you in a court of law.
It's pretty good advice, although Blackman doesn't take it.
Okay, I understand, but I'm just telling my side of the story because what's on paper is not.
I'd advise you not to talk about the facts of the case. Okay?
Okay.
Good luck to you, sir.
Blackman's pled not guilty, and his trial is pending.
That's it for this edition of Court Cam.